Well, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Tony, for those very nice words. Actually, I'm very excited to understand that I'm the second candle on your birthday cake, so I'm trying to shine as a candle. I've been asked today to speak. Do you hear me? Yeah, is it fine? I've been asked today to speak about the new energy world and to make a long presentation. Actually, I'm going to try to shorten it and probably fly over a few slides. And then I would like this session, if possible, to be as interactive as we can. But first, let me congratulate Hong Kong UST for the 25th anniversary. And let's auto-congratulate ourselves about this beautiful agreement that we've signed between MIT, HKUST, and Schneider. For us, it's quite meaningful because we've got 3,000 people, a lot of them in R&D in Boston. And we've got, I live in Hong Kong with quite a large team of Schneider, so establishing that bridge is absolutely great, okay? So, well, maybe half an hour. What I would like to do with you is to speak about my subject, which is the new energy world. I will speak a little bit about Schneider, because it's my tropism and my inclination. But I'm not speaking every day in front of academics, cultured and educated people. So I try to put what we do in energy and what is happening in the energy world into the wider scheme of what is happening in the world. I mean, energy and what is happening in energy is just a consequence of bigger trends or bigger things which are happening today in the world. So let's go on that presentation. I will start by a presentation of Schneider and go into a short video to tell you what we are doing.
From the moment you're up, so are we. You don't have to look too hard. Our technology is everywhere. Because energy is a basic human right, a right we bring to places that previously had no energy. And for people on the move, we move raw data so that it becomes information for smoother running, more efficient cities. Every day, our world asks for more reliable power. But our resources are limited. That's why we make better use of what's around us, giving clean, sustainable energies a solid chance in the future. So while we help industry and productivity, we never forget what's at the end of the day. Not everyone knows us, and fewer may see us, but we are the global specialists in energy management and automation. We are Schneider Electric. And in everything we do, we make sure that even while you're asleep, life is on.
So I'll tell you why I feel good today. When you live in Hong Kong, when I go out, normally all the people I meet are bankers or lawyers. And it's so good to be in a place where the people I will meet are technologists and industrialists. Okay? And I believe there is a large space in Hong Kong to create this parallel. We are very happy to be a great place for banking and everything, but we need to have more innovation, more technology, and more industrialists around. What do we do at Schneider? Well, especially in Hong Kong, because we have a very old history at Hong Kong on a very large space. Well, everything you do in your life, from where you live, from where you work, where you travel, is full of Schneider technologies. And those technologies make sure that your life is on. And we say that our mission is to make sure that life is on everywhere, because we are in 100 countries in the world, for everybody, because we develop very sophisticated technologies for the most mission-critical applications, to solutions for people who live at the bottom of pyramid, to bring them energy, and at every moment, because we make sure that our systems stay connected to you, and they stay serviced 24/7 all around the world. And there is one thing when you live, especially in poor countries, that you realize very, very fast, is that life is on when energy is on. So what we do at Schneider is to make sure that energy is on everywhere, and it's safe, and it's reliable, and it's efficient, and it's connected, and it's sustainable. And what I'm going to try to explain to you in the next coming 30 minutes is that the world of energy is going into a tremendous transformation, tremendous revolution, which is coming from itself, from innovation coming from energy, but coming also from the way we live and from the world we live in, which is itself going into profound transformation. So we believe at Schneider that energy is a basic human right. And I lived in Africa. I was working in China a long time ago when China was starting its development. And you see immediately the difference when energy is there. When energy is here, you can educate your kids, and people in the family don't have to spend a stupid amount of time to go and fetch things around. But we also believe at the same time that the way we produce energy in the world of today is unsustainable. So when you look at very basic figures, we are 7 billion roughly people around the world. 1.3 billion people don't have access to electricity. 1.3 billion. China. Okay? And on the top of that, 1 more billion, and it's grossly underestimated, have an unreliable access to energy, which is energy maybe 4 hours a day. Used to be a big backpacker, and I still backpack in my life. I go into places where at night the generator will start for 2 hours, and this is the time you have to recharge your iPhone. But life without energy is very difficult. And what we've said at Schneider, we have 180,000 people to make sure that first energy would be sustainable and that everybody will have the right to access to energy. So what is provoking the changes in energy? It's all about megatrends. Megatrends which are creating a rising demand for energy and a big call for efficiency. The first one is urbanization. Today, as we speak, 50% of the world is urbanized. We are going to create in the next 40 years, which is pretty much your generation. You're going to start your work, you're going to take responsibilities, make decisions. You're going to build in your generation as many cities as we've built since the beginning of humanity. So there are two possibilities. Either you consider that cities are great today, that they're not choking on the pollution and overpopulation, or you say we're just going to double up from a situation which is difficult to bear, and we're going to have to make them different. So I've amused myself, and this is probably just for you, to assemble a few things about cities. There are great news. The middle class will double till 2030. That's a huge business opportunity. That's a huge innovation opportunity. You have 65 million people moving every year to cities. That doesn't seem big to you. That's the population of France, the country where I come from. Every year, a new France is being urbanized and built. That's a huge challenge. Then you see all of those things, but the big thing is that you belong to the right place in the world, because most of the cities will be in Asia. 50% of the people in 2025 living in the cities will be in Asia also. And by 2025, 46 of the world's 200 cities will be in China. So now speak to your families around and people who know well China and ask them what will be the 46 top cities of China belonging to the top 200 cities of the world. Barely nobody is able to say 10 names. So we're going to have to learn those cities, we're going to have to build those cities. Got great news for you, you're going to have to do it. And personally, what I wish is that they won't be choked by pollution, choked by congestion. They will be green, they will be livable, and we're going to be able to share them much better than we do today. So this is a graph that I did with my team. Sometimes we do a lot of boring stuff in companies, but sometimes we take time and we try to understand where we should position ourselves. And this is, we did with McKinsey, a study to position the center of gravity, the economic gravity of the world in the past 2,000 years. So you see that it started in Middle East, where there was a lot of civilization that was pulled in between China and Middle East. And then it went during the 40s, a lot in the Atlantic Ocean, pulled by the US. And you've seen what has been coming back with the restart of China. It's coming back, and today the center of the world is north of Kazakhstan. Coming back straight to Hong Kong. So when you think about your career and your choices, you've got to think 10 or 20 years in advance. And this is why I decided, as the CEO of the company, 4 years ago, to position myself in Asia and chose Hong Kong. Because, well, Asia was bound to become the biggest region of our company, which it became last year. And Asia today represents 40% of our people in the company. Very simple things, but put in a simple graph. I don't know where it's going, but certainly China will be sucking that down and put it back to Hong Kong. Second mega trend that I would like to share with you, it's industrialization. So as the world is urbanizing, as the world is looking for more efficiency, people are industrializing things. But it's becoming also something very important because the world is aging. You see here some terrifying kind of statistics, like fertility rates in 60% of the world population is below replacement rate. Germany as a country shrinking by 20% in the next years to come. For the first time, well, aging of population in China particularly, to realize also that in the past 2 decades, 3/4 of the new workers were either females, which is a great news. That means new people are getting access to the market, or immigrants. But this pool will be kind of saturating, and productivity has to get to a higher level. And why that? Because if you look at the past 50 years, and you look at the growth of the world, 50% came from the addition of new workers on the job market, and 50% came from the productivity that we realize. If you look at the next 50 years, this adding of new workforce on the market is dwindling, is shrinking. So we're going to have to look for more productivity. Productivity everywhere. Do more efficiently things to maintain the growth. So the next one, which is important, is digitization. And digitization has been fantastic for Schneider because we are the biggest supplier of energy systems to data centers. And every time you guys are tweeting, Facebooking, Snapchatting, and those kind of things, you consume a lot of energy. And our job is to make your tweets, Snapchat stuff, carbon friendly. It's okay? And we've done a great job at that. We've divided your consumption per byte by 2 in the past 5 years. And we keep going on that one. But digitization is going much more into a much bigger direction, and it's the whole Internet of Things. So if you look at the whole history of Internet, we connected in the past 20 years 2 billion people together, 2.5. In the next coming 5 years, we are connect 2 billion more people to the Internet, but the big change is that we are going to connect 40 billion machines to the Internet. So connecting machines to machines and machines to people. And you see that happening with the connected objects everywhere. So digitization is certainly the big change, the huge change which is happening today. It changes everything. I found that one funny. It changes our relationship to authority. Okay, to the way we see the Queen, the teachers, the CEOs of companies. I don't tell you the kind of funny mails I receive through LinkedIn. And, it's really taking out a lot of barriers. It's also changing our kids will be asking things. That's a letter to Santa with the exact Amazon site. Tell you, it's making it much more precise. Okay, and it's making it much more credible. But this is exponential, and what strikes me when I look at innovation, on our job at Schneider, we've got 11,000 people in innovation, 10,000 other people on application innovation, is that we, whatever the generation, don't see the changes coming. So we always think it's going to be linear, while it's going to be, in many cases, exponential. So you take 30 steps. You are linear, it makes 30 meters. You are exponential, you are better at math than I am. It's 26 times around the Earth. And we believe that it's really what is happening today. What is happening in the field of industry, in the development, you see that curve which is measuring the global GDP per capita. The first industrial revolution changed a curve that was very, very flat, and now it's rising exponentially with all the innovation we are putting. So you could discuss those things, but at the end of the day, in the field of energy and in the field of carbon emission, this is exactly what we see. Carbon emission have skyrocketed since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So what strikes me is that first, revolutions or revelation of any trust are ridiculed, they are resisted till everybody says, of course I knew it. But the people who see it before are making them much more innovative, much more successful than the other ones. So what we see today is a fantastic acceleration of technology. Things that you know, like the first phone that was connected in 1876, the first internet site. I was living in China at that time, 91, my first connection to the internet, connecting to the rest of the world, actually beginning of hell, because it was so good to be isolated. And then the first iPhone coming in 2007, which means that this first website come in my pocket all the time. That has been a big change. And I'll come back to those things. But you see the things, 40 billion objects to be connected in the next coming 5 years, 1 trillion objects to be connected by 2025. The one that I prefer the most is probably the fact that among 100 humans on the planet, actually only 64 have access to toilets, but 95 have a mobile phone. To tell you how much digitization is important, we do systems on products to bring energy to the depths of Africa, depths of places where there is no energy. The first function that people want is light, because you can educate people, you can read, you can live together. The second one is connecting and recharging my mobile phone. What struck me the most is that on the top of it, they ask, and it should be to recharge an iPhone, which is not exactly cheap, which is not exactly the same thing as doing it for any kind of product. So acceleration, and look at those curves. It took 75 years to connect 100 million users to the phone. But it took 1 year to connect 100 billion users to WeChat. And you see how the thing is accelerating at the level of technology, as well as globalization makes the time to double the GDP per head much shorter. I don't think that the British are particularly slow. They were just the first one to start the industrial development. But you see that, in average, developing a country in terms of GDP in the present time is taking 10 years, where it used to take more than 100 years ago. So a massive acceleration, on the conclusion would be like my kids saying, okay, it's too fast for me, relax, leave that to the machines, and we're going to go and play outside. But these are the megatrends, okay? Megatrends which are accelerating everything, raising the need for energy and raising the call for efficiency. So when you look at all this, the energy landscape is pretty disparate, actually. If you look at the next 40 years, well, the energy consumption will be multiplied by 1.5. Which actually is much better than 10 years ago when I started with that strategy of the company. It was multiplied by 2. In the meantime, people like us at Schneider worked like hell to bring technology to the service of efficiency. So today we are more at 1.5. Carbon emissions, and I remind you that in Paris at the end of the year there will be the COP21, where countries will be invited to take commitments. Well, I'm going to be speaking about that, but today we are nowhere in terms of climate change. We are on a curve of temperature increase of 4 degrees to 6 degrees. So it's extremely important that we divide the emissions respect to 1990 by a factor of 2. So you are very strong in mass, multiplied by 1.5, divided by 2. That means we have to do everything we do today with a factor of efficiency which is 3 times better than what we do today. That's as simple as this. Then you look at the carbon footprint. So this is very artistic. It's a carbon footprint in the figurative on a practical way. But you see that China has overshot the US in terms of carbon emission, that Europe actually all aggregate is roughly at the same level. But here you have very, very strong differences. Like the US is per capita emitting twice as much carbon as Europe, which itself is not doing as good as Japan. And I tell you, all of those countries, there is not one country today or one company I go to which is not actively working on that. And sometimes it can be by faith into climate change, which I personally believe in, but sometimes it's coming just because citizens in the cities, and you've seen the pollution in China, just don't want it anymore. So you've got to do things very differently. Big stress coming up on already existing on the world because of that, and a large part of it is coming from energy generation and energy consumption. We are on a curve today of a temperature increase of 4 to 6 degrees. The Arctic would be, we at Schneider have created the first carbon-free polar station, and we see through that the ice melting very, very fast. So the Arctic temperature could go up by 16 degrees. The UK and New Zealand temperature and the coastal temperature could raise by 2 degrees, which could be seen as a benefit, actually, or something quite positive. But you see already more weather disorders. I wouldn't say it's global warming, but it's more weather disorders, storms coming, devastating things, and it has already a huge cost on the society. The other thing which is coming as the biggest problem of this century is water. And you know the story. I mean, China, for instance, 20% of the world population, less than 10% of the water resources, already a lot of it is being polluted by development. So this is coming as a major problem. On water is energy. If you work on it, I mean, you can desalinate provided you've got enough energy. So resources, scarcity, remind you that when we do electricity, 1 kilowatt hour of electrical consumption burns 3 kilowatt hour at the level of the generation. So every time you switch off a light, which actually is not the biggest source of consumption, but every time you work on your consumption, you save 3 times the amount at the level of generation, therefore at the level of carbon. Why? Because the process of generating and transforming energy in electricity has many losses. Water, I spoke about it, but there is a big thing of hope here, which everything we do is fantastically inefficient. There is 96% or 86% of the energy, in average, of the energy produced by fuel combustion never reaches the wheels. That's using proper software for measurement, if you see what I mean. A car is parked today, in average, 96% of its time. And the success of car-sharing schemes in many cities. And you see the thing, the grid, the electrical grid is used more than 50% of its time at less than 50% of its capacity. So it's a huge immobilization of assets for nothing, on a huge maximum capacity which is underutilized on generating pollution, on deproductivity, on inefficiency. So this is for the resources, and then you look forward and you see what's coming up and you just say it's not sustainable, right? It's just not sustainable. So now that's the world, and this is now let's land on the energy world. So this is the energy world as you know it, or as we knew it. Very top down. So we produce, it goes through a grid, and then it goes to consumption. And the fundamental of this is that you have to produce more than the maximum peak of consumption. When this doesn't work, it finishes in power outages, right? 19 million people in the US a certain number of years ago. Same thing in Italy. It happens every year in France, in Brittany. In some countries, they ask you to stop your factories regularly. It happened to me in the old times in China. Now it's no problem anymore. It happens quite a lot in India still. So that's the old grid. When you look at the future of energy, it's quite simple. It will be more electric. And you see that with transportation, cars, Tesla, you know, this BMW new products. It comes also at the level of temperature control. The world is using more HVAC, electrical control rather than fuel-powered, gas-powered systems. It's going to be, and there is a reason to that also, is that electricity is anyway easier to use, and it's the only thing that can be ultimately carbon-free through renewables. Okay? The second thing is going to be connected, like I described before. We're going to be connecting those machines, energy, and it's connect you to your systems. So through a mobile phone that will detect you and enable you to dialogue with your environment. And it will connect you with your environment on many applications. For instance, today when we do a green building at Schneider, we use a weather application that says, attention, there is a cold wave coming, start heating the building 2 hours in advance. So all those API enable to create ecosystems which are much more reactive. It's going to be more distributed. The good old time of big generation plant is probably over, particularly the solar, coupled with storage, will change a lot the landscape of energy, and it's going to be far more efficient. I would argue that, especially in Hong Kong, probably each building should be consuming 30 to 50% less than today with an augmented comfort. It just needs to do a very basic thing, which is adapt to the presence of people. Buildings are not done for buildings, they are done for people. So now, when you look at that, the whole work that we have done at Schneider has been to say, if we want to change the paradigm of energy, we have to be much more efficient, which is a great intention, but the only way to do it is to use technology. Because technology is the only one enabling step changes in terms of efficiency. And particularly the first potential we see here of technology is to make sure that demand is more efficient and connected, and we converge the world of energy, the world of automation, and the world of software, plus the world of IoT, the one I was describing, making sure that every object we develop is connected, to make sure that energy is optimized and process is optimized. Then the second revolution happening is all around generation and distribution, which are smarter, which are connected and more distributed. So solar, energy storage, microgrids, grid automation, I think people have not yet understood the magnitude of the revolution of a solar that then works without consuming fuel. So you pay at the beginning, but then the cost there is no cost anymore, which is pretty much a revolution which happened in telecommunication with the broadband. You remember we are paying every second, I'm speaking for the old people in this room like me, but we were paying every second of communication. Today we pay $30 a month, and it's everything included, all you can hit. Well, solar energy applied is exactly this, distributed at your door on your roof. So when you put all this, the new world of energy is what? It's a grid which is much more intelligent, all connected, connecting all the elements. It's distributed generation all over. Sometimes on a big scale, we just finished a 300 megawatt solar farm in Europe. That's not small, that's really big. And connected points for consumption, which are all smart, all efficient, all adaptive to the presence of people. Actually, Tony, the place where we get the best efficiency is which application for energy efficiency? Schools. Because schools are often empty. And you don't switch off the light, don't change the temperature, don't save energy naturally. So machines have to do it for you, but the normal result we get on the school is 50% energy efficiency. Because people are not there for a large part of their time. So that's pretty much it, and I will stop here. I had plenty of other slides, actually. I had an avalanche of slides for you, but I think it's enough. Well, actually, Schneider is doing technologies for all of this, right? Okay, that's pretty much a summary of the next 20 minutes. But what I would like is more to use that to take your pushback questions, see you leave in the room, whatever you judge adequate and appropriate. Thank you for your attention.